The following video will be discussing the sector higher education and its relationship with online learning. What are some of the major differences between online learning and face-to-face learning? What is currently in place to help students transition from high school to university? How could different learning theories predominantly used in the classroom affect students' educational experience? Students can help to ease this transition by understanding the rationales, the commonalities and differences, the major reviews, and the learning theories pertaining to online learning in higher education.
Online learning in higher education is growing. It seems that students are intrigued with online learning as the number of participants across the United States is rising in programs across the country. With this increase in participants, this shows that students are more aware of the benefits of online learning.
According to a study conducted in 1994, some predicted challenges higher education was going to be facing based on its current state were lack of accessibility and dwindling resources. With this in mind, higher education wanted to implement online learning to become more accessible and to increase the resources available to both learners and instructors. Online learning has given colleges and universities the ability to expand their audience to students of various geographical locations. It has also allowed higher education to become more accessible to working adults. This is achieved through its convenient and flexible qualities, such as the ability to access course content at any time and from anywhere. Implementing online learning allowed colleges and universities to expand their resources from outside the walls of the building. According to Ali, quote, learners can use the internet to access up-to-date and relevant learning materials and can communicate with experts in the field which they are studying, unquote, thereby increasing the places students can obtain knowledge from.
Commonalities and differences of online learning. Online and face-to-face learning utilize many similar tools and require similar expectations from students, just in different approaches. Online learning utilizes tools such as discussion, participation, and assignments as much as face-to-face. It also requires students to effectively manage time, organize, and utilize writing skills. The differences are in how they do this. Discussions in class can be thought-provoking and insightful, where that same discussion asynchronously can be unwieldy and confusing, as it is lacking communication skills such as body language and tone. With advances in technology, this gap is decreasing. Discussion in the classroom can bounce from student to student almost as much as in a synchronous online learning setting. Asynchronous discussions are a little more challenging for some. They usually utilize a discussion board, which can be difficult to follow along the conversation. Participation in a classroom setting is voluntary if you choose to raise your hand. In an online discussion board, it is easier for a teacher to mandate a student to post one or two discussions or comments on others' work. It allows the teacher time and gives the student the opportunity to have time to think about their response without having to speak in front of others if they're not comfortable doing so. Time management is one that is similar in an online setting and face-to-face setting. Individuals still have to spend an average of 3 hours a week per course. However, it is easier for students in an online setting to manage those 3 hours. They do not have to calculate a commute, and they can work their school schedule into their everyday schedule, instead of the other way around. Both face-to-face and online learning utilize similar assignment strategies. However, face-to-face ones tend to have more variety, and online ones tend to be modified. Overall, both are effective methods of learning if approached accordingly. Based on these 7 practices of higher education, teaching, and learning, all are common in an online learning setting as much as a face-to-face learning setting.
Next, we'll be discussing the major reviews pertaining to online learning within higher education. As online learning is growing, more benefits are being introduced, creating more reviews about the subject. Lynch quotes, as the concept of distance learning evolves from cassette tapes and telephone learning to high-speed interactive internet lessons, more doors are open for students for whom traditional classroom learning simply does not work, unquote. As students are able to use a variety of devices, this means students can essentially be anywhere in the world. Online learning in higher education also focuses on problem-based learning. Within the books, The Science of Problem Solving, Watts quotes, problem solving are not only that the new knowledge is acquired, but that the skills of problem solving to solve other or different questions or ideas down the line, unquote. This allows for the development of skills that can be used in the future within the classroom or with general problems in the outside world. Online learning in higher education is both asynchronous and synchronous. This provides students the ability to complete coursework on their own time, creating more time in the virtual classroom to collaborate with facilitators and peers.
In this section, we will give a brief overview of behaviorism, cognitivism, and the adult learning theory.
We will be discussing 2 main theories pertaining to behaviorism. The first theory is the operant conditioning theory, which was developed by B.F. Skinner. He believed that the behavior that is followed by a reinforcement is most likely to be repeated, and a behavior followed by a punishment is less likely to be repeated, thereby creating the learner to exhibit the more desirable behavior in the future. The second theory is classical conditioning by Pavlov. His study involved conditioning dogs by using a bell that was a neutral stimulus and a food that was an unconditioned stimulus. He would ring the bell while giving the dogs food. After repeating this multiple times, he would ring the bell on its own, and it created the dogs to salivate without the food present, thus making the neutral stimulus become a conditioned stimulus.
Due to the student-centered approach of online learning versus the teacher-directed approach in face-to-face learning, we believe that behaviorism is not a dominant learning theory within this sector. Cognitivism is a learning theory that was built off the work of behaviorism, the main adjustment being this theory focuses on the mental processes that occur in the mind. According to Jones, quote, cognitive theories address issues concerning how information is received, organized, stored, and retrieved. Learning from this perspective is concerned with what the learners know and how they come to acquire knowledge, unquote. Adult learning theory and andragogy. Andragogy presents core principles of adult learning that enable those designing and conducting adult learning to build a more effective learning process for adults, according to Knowles, Holton, and Swanson. This theory is classified under humanism, which focuses on self-actualization and personal growth. According to Knowles, Holton, and Swanson, it is an honest attempt to focus on the learner. In this sense, it provides an alternative to methodology-centered instruction design perspective. The focus is on motivation and proactivity, rather than opposing concepts. Adults should feel accepted, respected, and supported. This will assist in transitioning from dependent to independent learners.
Interaction is key, meaning instructor presence and feedback is critical in adult learning. In an online instruction setting, this can include discussions, answering questions, and formal feedback. Overall, there are 4 key areas to ensure learning is adult-centered and authentic. Includes tasks that are highly relevant, problem-based instruction, consider prior experience, and allows room for self-direction.
Based on these key characteristics of the cognitive and adult learning theories, we believe that although they may not be used in every program, these are 2 theories that still have some influence on this sector. In this final segment, we will be discussing constructivism. This is the predominant learning theory that we believe influences online learning in higher education.
Online learning is very different in comparison to a conventional classroom. With that in mind, facilitators within online learning need to acquire specific techniques to help their students in classrooms radiate with success. The constructivism theory connects greatly to online learning in higher education, as constructivist educational principles suggest that educational environments should provide learners with personal control, authentic learning contexts, and diverse personal interactions, including collaboration. By including all these traits, students are able to participate in a classroom community where all can thrive. Adult learners within the digital age are able to increase their critical thinking skills, which in turn helps them become better students and learners. They are able to think outside of the box and find solutions to questions or ideas in their own means. If instruction uses cooperative learning properly, it can improve students' social skills or interpersonal skills. Understanding this, students work and support each other to comprehend contributed information shared. This in turn can reduce the barriers to interaction between students, peers, and facilitators. Constructivism has pushed for a change within the individually based type of learning. This has allowed for constructivism to shift the emphasis from knowledge as a product to knowing as a process. It can be interpreted that constructivism will likely prove to be a lasting and meaningful shift in the structure of schooling, as students will be learning through their own experiences and motivations. Furthermore, constructivism explains that the knowledge gained by learners is created in groups or individually. This knowledge is based on their experience with the world, which in turn allows them to reflect on those experiences. In summary, Jones would explain that the constructivist theory allows for gathered knowledge to be formed and comprehended. It includes both individual and social learning, and it allows the students to actively learn.
Should there be transitional guidelines provided to students in order to prepare them for this change of learning environment? If so, who should be responsible for providing these? If you are in charge of providing these guidelines, what would you implement to make this transition easier? Could these guidelines also be used for a student who is transitioning from workplace to higher education?